What's going on, everybody? It is the NPCs Weekly News Roundup. It is July 3rd, 2021. Happy day before Independence Day, everybody. Don't blow off a finger with those fireworks. Tonight, we are going to be talking about the Justice Department in currently investigating Overwatch League in regards to salary caps on their players. We'll also be looking at the letter of intent that Hideo Kojima signed with Xbox for a Xbox exclusive game. And we'll also be looking at even more stuff with Xbox and how game streaming has made its way across the spectrum now to include PC and iOS, as well as the Series X data center upgrades. Again, guys, it is July 3rd, 2021. We're going to roll our intro and get things started. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another NPCs Weekly News Roundup for the week of November 20th, 2020. It is Friday. It is, where's my date? It's September 18th. 2020 here to our first story, and this is actually breaking news for all of us right now here too. Figured this is a kind of a big one to cover, of course, with who it is. Joined via Discord by Kyle because we're in the midst of a pandemic still, and of course everything is all kinds of crazy. So this thing is a chonker. I mean,
yeah, it's a beast.
It's huge. Doing that we had the Resident Evil stuff, that they were successful with Castlevania. Welcome to another NPC's Weekly News Roundup. And it's the news time. I am joined, of course, by Kyle via Discord. Kyle, hello.
What's up?
Man. That's right. It's news time, everybody. Welcome. Welcome, everybody. Of course, we are doing this now on Saturday night. Just some things in regular life have now kind of required the movement of things. And of course, even with that movement, Kyle is still able to join us anyway for the news. So good evening, Kyle.
Good evening.
Dude, we got a lot of news things to talk about, especially something that came out yesterday here that was a bit of a surprise. It's that first one there, and then we can hop right into our title story after that. Of course, did you happen to see this story before we put it into the news notes for tonight?
Just briefly. I didn't get a chance to actually read the entire story though, so it's still news to me.
Yeah, well, let's hop right into it, everybody, and start talking about this one here. From Kotaku, report Justice Department investigating Overwatch League. The U.S. Department of Justice is looking into Overwatch League's soft salary cap policy that punishes teams who pay players too much, according to a new report by Esports. The investigation is being headed up by the Civil Conduct Task Force, part of the department's antitrust division. According to Esports, regulators are looking into whether the Overwatch League's secret soft cap on salaries violates the 1890 Sherman Antitrust Act because the players aren't unionized. While the investigation isn't criminal, Esports reports that several former Overwatch League employees have already been interviewed by the Justice Department officials, and that current Activision Blizzard employees have been instructed by the company to not tamper with or destroy information regarding player salaries. The Justice Department and Activision Blizzard did not immediately respond to a request for comment by Kotaku. We have received an inquiry from the Department of Justice and are cooperating accordingly, a spokesperson for Activision Blizzard told Esports. We deliver epic entertainment to our fans and support our players and teams in producing the most competitive and enjoyable esports leagues in the world. A competitive balance tax in the Overwatch League was first reported by Dextero in 2019, but has never been publicly acknowledged by Activision Blizzard. According to Esports, the soft salary cap per team in 2020 was $1.6 million. For every dollar franchises like the San Francisco Shock, Shanghai Dragons, and London Spitfire paid over that amount, they had to pay an equal additional amount to the league to be redistributed back to the other teams. While in theory this would help keep the league balanced in terms of team spending, it would also discourage teams from offering more competitive salaries to players. So what's effectively happening here is that, I mean, imagine you need to be paid the exact same amount as somebody else, even if that team may end up doing better and recruiting and, wants to try to entice people to come over. But if the pay is the same across the board, I mean, does that really foster any sort of want to actually move from team to team or anything, like to start kind of changing yourself up?
I mean, that's kind of tough. A lot of the people that play on them are still kids necessarily,
True.
So, I mean, maybe it's a good chance for their family to move, but I can't see there being any other reason for them like wanting to try and transfer anyway, unless they offered a more competitive salary.
Yeah, because if the pay for someone playing in Overwatch League is going to be the same regardless of what team you're on, if you're on the worst of the worst or the best of the best, you're all going to be making the same. So if you're say like San Francisco Shock when they won Overwatch League at the beginning at the beginning of 2020,
Hmm.
because they won, they had some bonuses that came their way for it, but I don't know how that allocated necessarily into salaries for them. So as things went, it's like if it's a really good team, you'd figure they'd be a bit more competitive to make sure they could stay on top. It's like, okay, well, we'll
Right,
throw an extra 10 or 15 grand at you in a salary to be able to go ahead and move you over here because we like your style. We want to bring you over. But the league
right.
rules are effectively forcing them to say, no, it doesn't matter. You have to pay everybody the same.
Yeah, and that then it just becomes, where it's convenient for you to play for that team, or who
Right.
what team members you get along with the best is where you want to be.
Yeah, it may not even also just be that. It's really about a lot of the skill. I mean, I don't know where Overwatch really ranks right now,
Hmm.
especially on like the esports like scale right now, like where everything sits. I know that like Dota and Counter-Strike are still way up there,
Oh
but
yeah.
I just don't know where Overwatch League sits right now. And I mean, we're in the middle of their season, and of course that's when this is being dropped right now. So
Hmm.
it, I just don't know. Like, plus you even said it too. It's like a lot of these players are younger. That esports prime age is between what, 18 and 26,
Yeah,
potentially?
27 I think is what it was.
Hmm. Yeah, because we
Yeah.
talked about age stuff before at one point too, in a completely different story. But the fact, though, that the Justice Department's involved in actually looking into it maybe ends up becoming a good thing for those players because they worked their asses off and they deserve to earn more, definitely depending on where their responsibility lays at in the team itself and how well they do in the team. Tie bonuses to it. It's like you've got a DPS of this. Here's an extra $1,000 for doing that.
Right.
Just as an example, to help kind of on the stat side of things. I don't know though. As long as you're not underpaying anybody, that's
Right.
I think where you'd start hitting more of that stuff. But uh, yeah, so that was an interesting one that dropped out of nowhere yesterday. So I guess we'll have to see what comes back from the Justice Department because we'll probably see some type of announcement from them at some point. Nothing really big, just more like a general press release as to what's going on. And that will probably come up this next week, given that 4th of July is tomorrow. A lot of places are going to be closed down on the 5th instead. So it's probably going to take at least a few more extra days to get that information back.
Right.
In the meantime, though, Kyle, this one is our title story for tonight, and I think you need to talk to all of us about this one. Uh,
Oh yeah.
from from VG247, Hideo Kojima signs a letter of intent with Xbox. What is going on with Kojima?
Hideo Kojima's deal with Xbox is moving forward. According to new GamesBeat report, Hideo Kojima has signed a letter of intent with Microsoft as a first step in an agreement that would see the legendary designer's next project published by Xbox. Neither Microsoft nor Kojima have publicly announced they're talking to one another, of course, but this signing indicates that they're moving forward. The next step is for lawyers on both sides to negotiate the deals and work out the specifics. The report also revealed that Kim Swift, veteran game designer who worked on Portal, Left 4 Dead, and other projects, has joined Microsoft specifically to help Kojima bring his next idea to life. Swift was chosen for her expertise working on cloud games at Stadia. Kojima previously, of course, indicated that he's interested in exploring the potential of the cloud with the next project. It's unclear whether the game will exist only in the cloud, but it looks like cloud computing delivery will be a major component of it. It also doesn't appear that a specific pitch for the game exists yet. only a desire from the two parties to make use of each other's expertise. Finally, the report suggests that whatever deal gets made won't preclude Kojima from working with other publishers, such as Sony and so forth.
Well, that was actually a bit of a surprise then, because the fact that, like, Kojima has always done and has really put most of his emphasis into PlayStation titles. It's interesting to
Yeah, that's
actually
an
see
about
him move
face.
over. Yeah, and I wonder if it's because, like it said there in the article, is that he's interested in exploring the potential of the cloud with his next project, which means because of the offering that we've got with game streaming and with Game Pass, it seems like maybe Microsoft has actually found its niche with that, and Kojima actually sees the value in doing it instead of waiting on Sony to kind of play catch up.
Um, there's that, but I think maybe part of it, besides the cloud gaming and cloud computing stuff, is potentially also the focus on the Japanese audience for the Xbox, whereas Sony seems to be moving away from the Japanese audience, which is kind of bizarre.
That is weird, especially because that's like their strongest market. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, Xbox has always struggled in Japan, so that's an interesting way. But maybe it's because it is allowing the Japanese market to be able to access the cloud and be able to play Xbox games without investing in an Xbox, especially when we see whatever Phil Spencer was talking about, like an xCloud streaming stick.
Well,
You
and
know,
this specifically pertains to like games and like content that they wanted to put out and audiences that they wanted to tailor to. I
right?
wanted to I want to say it was close to the launch, not quite to the launch of the new consoles. That Sony said that they were pushing forward more with the U.S. audience and the Western audience. So I don't know if that has anything to do with it. It's unlikely, but maybe.
Okay. Very well, very, very possible that Kojima is actually seeing that. That Kojima is actually seeing that the market that he has devoted so much time to is not being served the right way. It's just what do you think? I mean, Kojima is always surprising people anyway with what he's working on. I mean,
Mhm.
we know for a fact this is most likely not going to be a Metal Gear Solid game. Um, Death Stranding 2 would be a very interesting thing to see, but I don't think that's going to be the case. I mean, what's your wildest guess you think that Kojima could potentially come back with?
Man, I don't know. We did a walking simulator, so
Yeah, there's that. I know you
and
got
we we've
stealth
done we've
action
done
and
stealth combat simulator.
yep.
Um, what's something else that's somewhat mundane and extreme?
I wanna throw this out there. I bet you it's going to be a party game.
You think so?
I think it's gonna be, and here's where I'm thinking about that is that if he wants to explore stuff in the
I think
cloud,
so.
I think this is going to be more of something that probably will tap into something AR related and or potentially something that leverages a lot of like the game streaming stuff using phones as well, so that wherever you're at you can actually get into these things as well. And so that's why I'm thinking, like, I know it's really out of left field for
Mhm.
Kojima to do something like that, but I know, like, so party game is one of them, and then going on the opposite spectrum, I'm honestly thinking some type of horror game, like, because he couldn't do Silent Hills, that completely blew up with him working with Guillermo del Toro. Fuck, I can't speak. With Del
It's okay.
Toro and
I'm
Norman
yawning
Reedus
like
to
crazy.
make Silent Hills. So that's all been shut down. So maybe he sees something about maybe a horror game there too, and especially in the
Right.
cloud, maybe there's something. I don't know what he'd leverage about being in the cloud per se, but you know, I don't know. It just
Yeah,
seems in his
I
realm
don't
for
know.
a
I,
horror
I
game.
I feel like you were onto something with being on the go and playing using the cloud gaming service. I feel like that's something that it probably would be geared towards.
Yeah, I just wanted to throw like a party game like out of left field there, just because it's Kojima and he always surprises us. You never know. It's Kojima's take on a Mario Party for some weird reason. Who knows?
Well, and who knows? Maybe you're not too far off, but maybe in the more broad sense that it's a party game because everyone's playing it simultaneously. You just don't know it. That's kind of how Death Stranding was. That's how it was connecting people. Besides just being, a delivery man and making bridges and crap. I mean, you could actually get stuff that people had developed into the world loaded into your world as well. So, leftover ladders that people had thrown into to go to nowhere, or, really
Mm-hmm.
good paths or really good zip lines. So,
Yeah, and depending on how long it would take for those assets to even disappear, not only you're talking about like downloading new things in all the time to make sure it stays
mhm,
up to date with whatever you actually get, but it's also assets that the game has to track, so that's more resources you have to use on it too.
right.
So yeah. But it will be interesting to see what Kojima could potentially come up with, but he's so bizarre in what he makes anyway. Who knows what it could be?
Yeah. I don't know. Hmm. Didn't he do a mech game? What was that called?
Metal Gear.
No, no, no. I think it might have been before Metal Gear. I want to say he did a game that was like, it might have been a tactical RPG, actually.
I don't know. If you want to take a look, we can see what there was. No, I was gonna say I don't know what else he's made.
Yeah, I'm checking real quick. Mm,
Yeah, I'm trying to see if I can find anything.
Zone of the Enders. That'd be really
Hmm.
cool. He actually did Boktai as well on the Game Boy Advance, by the way.
I don't know
And
what
that
that
was a
is.
really unique idea. It actually had it was a solar sensor in the cartridge. So you had to play in the sun so you could charge up your weapon.
I remember a game like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm. And then Alex added here on Facebook, Police Knots was
Yeah, I was seeing
written
that.
and directed by Hideo Kojima and released for the PC 9821 in 94. And it was a straight up just
Man,
Japanese game.
I do love the artwork. That
It
is some
really,
like
the artwork does
classic
seem fitting of the
anime.
time. Yeah. That's what
Yeah.
I was seeing about it. But
Someone even did a fan of a mashup between Death Stranding and the art style. So it's like the Death Stranding characters in that art style.
excuse me, I'm also
Pretty
yawning
cool.
like you are. Yeah, that in of itself is actually really cool. I'll have to look that up here after the stream. But let's carry on here into some more interesting news, of course, this week. So, one of the big things, of course, that happened is that Sony has actually purchased a couple different studios this week. We got Housemarque and what is it, Nixus? I think is what it
Nixus,
was.
yeah.
Yeah, Nixus Studios. So of course, Housemarque made Returnal, and Nixus is known for PC ports of mostly Square Enix games.
Yeah.
However, like non-Final Fantasy Square Enix games. However, one of the interesting things this week was actually a leak that came out, and so let's talk about that. From Games Radar, Bluepoint Games Twitter bio states it's fully independent despite PlayStation acquisition rumors. Bluepoint Games Twitter bio has stated it's fully independent as rumors it may be acquired by the PlayStation studios circulate. The Demon's Souls developer has recently added that it's a fully independent, self-funded studio to its Twitter bio, which it appears wasn't previously contained in the social media site's description of the company as recently as March 2021. Not only this, but the studio has also allegedly added the same phrase to a job listing on its website so that it now reads as Bluepoint Games, an independent studio renowned for the remakes of Demon's Souls and Shadow of the Colossus, is seeking industry-leading talent to join us in crafting our next high-profile AAA title. With the use of the Wayback Machine, we can see that this phrase wasn't contained in the job listing as recently as yesterday, June 30th, 2021. As for Twitter, we are only able to see results for yesterday, which the phrase was included in the bio, and back to March 16th, 2021, where the phrase was absent, meaning it could have been added around a similar time as it was to the job listing or sometime between March 16th and June 30th. Why this is of interest is due to the accidental release of an image that said Bluepoint Games would be joining PlayStation Studios by the PlayStation Japan Twitter account before quickly being deleted a few days ago. That tweet was supposed to announce the actual acquisition of Returnal developers Housemarque, who will be joining the PlayStation family. However, it featured a graphic containing Bluepoint's logo as well as an image of Demon Souls. Nobody at PlayStation or Bluepoint has made an official announcement on the mix-up yet, so it's not clear whether this is an announcement that was supposed to come out at a later date or just a complete misunderstanding. So I'm going to open it up here and see if we can get that image here. Let's see. Yeah, so for our folks at home here, of course, who hopefully can see that. If you look here, of course, not only do we have the Bluepoint Games, Bluepoint Games logo here, but in the background of the Housemarque announcement, there was no Demon Souls key artwork there in the background. It was just Returnal. So take all of this here, cut this out, and just kind of squish it back together to fill in the space. So that wasn't there. And as you can see here, here's a screenshot out of TweetDeck that shows the actual gaff from PlayStation Japan. So where we sit here on this now is, was it just a goof that someone from PlayStation Japan was just like, I wonder what this could look like, and maybe just threw something together just to see, or did someone decide or someone drop the ball too soon?
Yeah, an April Fool's joke 3 months too late. What is this?
Yeah, exactly. And because it's funny to say that like Sony is in like a buying spree. I mean, before Housemarque was purchased, the last one they did was Insomniac back in 2019. So it has been a while since they've really picked up anybody. But
and I did raise the question that it could potentially be panic buying, but I think it was a little bit more strategic than that. Especially with the purchase of, with Returnal doing so well, and it's pretty much one of the only games you can get on the PlayStation 5 aside from that. And Nixxes, the ports that they've done for PC have been absolutely excellent. So
yeah, I have nothing negative to say on that part whatsoever. They have really done a good job on that part. It's interesting to see a couple of them, though. I mean, Housemarque, I guess, really is one thing, because they actually are a games developer, whereas Nixxes is a developer that just, they port the titles and then they offer support on some other things too. I mean, getting a company getting a company that's special.
Bluepoint's like that too. Bluepoint does a lot of ports.
That's also fair, yeah, because I was looking at their catalog when the leak inadvertently dropped. But the fact, though, that like Nixxes has done so well and their primary customer has been Square Enix to work with to do those ports, maybe it's just because Sony's realizing that after, how well Horizon Zero Dawn did on PC, and now we've got Death Stranding coming to PC, that it's like, what other titles could we throw out there? Even some of our back catalog stuff, like, maybe we could see... maybe we could see Uncharted, or I don't know, maybe Shadows of the Colossus make its way to PC.
Right.
Wouldn't that be that would be the thing, I think, for Sony to be able to make extra money, seeing as how nobody can get their hands on a PlayStation 5 right now. Yeah. So it's not out of the realm of possibility. And then going back onto the Bluepoint side of things, you got the ports. Demon Souls was a great looking game. I will not play it, though, because I know I'm absolutely terrible at it.
And it's the hardest one of any of those types of games.
Exactly. So what I would think then is that it's just, like you said, probably panic buying more than anything for them to actually go and pick something up like that. But
I don't think it was, though. I don't think it was. I almost feel like the Nixxes buy. Do you think about Days Gone, Horizon Zero Dawn. They're talking Uncharted 4 is coming to PC now.
Yeah.
Um, they've got lots of games that are going to be ported. Sony wants, the top dog to be able to be doing that. So why not just get them in house, make them part of, your brand, and they're the ones that are going to port your games to PC, so you can still generate that revenue.
Very, very likely in that regard. And then it turns around just that somebody moved a little too quick in grabbing assets to put up on Twitter.
Yeah. Oh, that's for sure. That's for
Someone,
sure.
someone probably had a nice talking to about that one. I mean, with the way things go in
I wonder
Japan.
if there were employees at Blue Point going, "Oh God, what happened?"
Yeah, I'm sure there were probably a lot of them that were like, Sony did what? We work for who now? I'm sure there are a lot of them that
Right.
went like that. And I'm sure the execs, when they heard about it, were probably rolling their eyes like, oh God, it's too soon. What the hell happened? So,
Yeah.
yeah, let's just keep an eye out on the news. Let's just see what comes out of it. Of course, we've got Sony's State of Play stuff coming up here sometime in the next couple weeks. So it's very likely we could hear some more details there. So, yeah. With that, speaking of Sony stuff, let's get into this next Sony story here. This one's actually been kind of blowing up really through the week. Kyle's going to talk to us about this one. This is from Game Rant. PlayStation is making life difficult for indie devs, according to report. So, Kyle, we talked about this one in the Open Critic news podcast, but let's rehash it here for our audience. What is going on?
A new report relates how Sony makes it difficult for indie developers to manage their games and see positive results on PlayStation. Indie developers have started to speak out about the lackluster treatment they receive from Sony when it comes to the titles they release on the PlayStation platform. Without naming names, one indie dev praised the Xbox Game Pass when discussing how poorly PlayStation handled indie games. According to the dev, uh, that
It's just Ian, is what
Ian,
I had. Yeah.
oh yeah, Ian Garner, PlayStation does very little to help indie devs see positive results on what they release through the console. So little, in fact, that Ian can't find a reason to continue publishing through them. Other indie devs seem to share Ian's sentiment. A new report published by Push Square relates how many of them share his same complaint, as well as his mentality on of whether it's even worth it putting the time and energy into making PlayStation ports for their games, as they apparently don't see anywhere near the same success on the console as they do any other game systems like Xbox or PC. The lack of indie games success on PlayStation, devs note, stem from Sony's neglecting to give them the title's effective advertisement. At most, devs will receive a trailer for their game on the official PlayStation YouTube channel, along with a post mentioning the game over the official PlayStation blog. The effectiveness of the latter eludes developers, as Sony doesn't give them, any statistics to work with. As for the former, devs typically find their own YouTube channels rake in more viewers for their respective trailers. To top it all, or to top this off, when compared to systems like the Xbox, PlayStation severely struggles with communication, which is made worse by the fact that indie developers need Sony's permission to carry out any managerial decision for the games that they've published through the PlayStation Store. For instance, it takes a month just for a developer to hear back from Sony on how well their games performed on launch, but other platforms will report back in about a day. Overall, indie developers aren't speaking out to bash PlayStation. Many have spoken of their love of the console and don't want to have to leave it behind. The goal of speaking up is to shine a light on the problem they're facing so that Sony can potentially fix them. Whether the PlayStation manufacturer will do so remains a mystery, but hopefully it does so, and soon. While indie games don't come with the same production value as AAA titles, they still have an important place among video games that Sony would regret missing out on. And I fully agree with that,
Yeah,
because indie
that's
titles are some of my favorites. So,
yeah, and indie titles have shown like massive success anyway, and it's really opened up new life into the gaming world anyway. Especially the fact that it's like we don't have to rely on AAA titles all the time for enjoyment. You know, we don't need
right.
that. So it's like indie developers are those who really like making video games. They want to stand up and be able to publish their own things. And especially most indie developers like publish across multiple platforms, so they're not usually like platform specific. You know, there are a lot that are, but there's also a very large segment that are not. You know, and they will publish on everything that they can get their hands on. You know, as long as they can support whatever they need to support with it. But yeah, it just seems that Sony ends up being this nice walled garden and really holds people back.
Hmm.
Yeah, because the original Twitter thread that kind of started off on all of this was saying that for some like prime placement stuff as well, like for some help, you could pay like minimum $25,000 to do
And
that.
that's a minimum.
Yeah, that's minimum. So for
So,
these devs who make the bigger games, who have the bank to do it, they're going to pay the money. But for
yeah,
an
that's a
indie
drop in the
dev,
bucket.
yeah, for an indie dev who relies just on the income of that one game, and you know maybe they work a regular job and this is their side thing, you know, they may not have that kind of money to promote it. That's
That
going to
might
be
have
the
been their
problem.
salary from their other job,
It very well could have.
like for the year.
Yeah, at minimum, yeah, like that's
Yeah.
a good chunk of it, especially. So Sony still has yet to actually say anything about the original Twitter thread, what Kotaku's posted, because Kotaku's got a big follow up on it, similar to what Game Rant put here. Yeah, Sony has yet to speak up and say anything. So maybe they'll turn this around and maybe provide some feedback when they do their presentation here soon. Maybe.
I'd like to think so, but probably not. Unfortunately, um Sony's uh, I don't know, attempt to contact developers even after a month, that I feel like is generous on Sony's behalf. Uh, when something isn't part of like Sony's main priority, it gets really pushed off to the wayside. I mean, think about their handhelds for
Oh
one.
yeah. Oh
Like it
yeah.
wasn't their main priority, so it was just like, oh, we put out this handheld, by the way. If you like it, you can buy it.
Yeah, and here are
And
the
then
games
maybe
they're
in a
gonna put
couple
out.
years, if we sell another enough of them, we'll make a Gen 2. But I
Yeah.
mean that's Sony for you, though.
Oh yeah, and it always really has been with them because of how they started. I mean, they got the short end of the stick when that Nintendo deal fell through, and we ended up getting the
Hmm.
birth of the PlayStation. So you know they've kind of flipped things around, but at least at this point in time, the market is very different in those compared to those days, like really
Right.
different. So I don't know what's going on with Sony. I mean, we all like our indie games. We play a lot of them. It's just bizarre that they would be so
I just
lacking on communication and support.
I think about some of the indie games. Wow. That I got on PlayStation because they were exclusive there first, and
Right.
I ended up buying them on Xbox and on PC, but I see them go on sale a lot more on PC and on Xbox, and it makes me wonder, maybe those developers are, hurting from the PlayStation. So, even though that, they did great and they had exclusive deals for a little while with the PlayStation, maybe they're looking back at that and gone, well, shit, maybe we shouldn't have done that.
Yeah. God, you could
But
only
why
hope that they
why
would have
would
something like that.
as a hardware developer, I mean, why would you want to put that, out to developers that, hey, this is how you're going to get treated? So I
Yeah.
think it's something that Sony seriously needs to address.
Yeah, and it needs to be soon because that
Hmm.
lack of support there is just going to push people away, and you're going to start to see more and more like more and more emphasis on indie games on the other platforms. And you're already
Right.
getting that anyway because like ID at Xbox is a big thing,
Hmm.
and even Switch's support, Nintendo support for indie games as well, even though there's a lot of it that can be considered like shovelware, but there's a lot of
Yeah.
it on there that is good, you know? There is a lot of it indie wise that can be good. So
And I've even
it just
found
depends, I
some good
guess.
shovelware, to be honest with you, because I buy a lot of that crap.
That
I
that
don't even
game,
care.
well, I'm gonna tell you right now, that game that you were telling me about on Steam last night, the one that looks like someone was really high and then decided that mixing Quake and the Windows 95, Windows 98 maze screensavers was a good idea.
Uh-huh.
No, no, there are some shovelware that just needs to go away. It needs to reuse that shovel to bury itself.
And what's funny is it has overwhelmingly positive reviews.
Of course it does.
Of
Of
course,
course it does.
yeah.
Yeah, of course it does. Oh my gosh. Well, speaking of the way revenue ends up going here, and of course, you know, looking at some of the other chaos that's actually going on in the world, this is going to be an interesting one for everybody here, and we really hope it doesn't come to fruition. Of course, as a fucking fly is flying around over here by my stuff. Get out of here. All right. Anyway, after that little fire drill, let's move on here to our next story, of course. And this one comes to us from PC Gamer. EA says it's not planning in game video ads following a report. And I'll come back to the update here really quick. So, in the original story part here, it says a new advertising platform will allow companies to include video ads in PC and console games similar to those seen in mobile games or on free to air TV. Dubbed Player One by owner and owned by Simulmedia, the tech is based around rewarding in-game items and currency to players who watch ads and targets free-to-play games, according to an Axios report. And it's probably going to catch on. Axios says that Simulmedia has already struck a deal with Hi-Rez, and a pilot has already run in Smite. According to the report, players during that pilot were much more likely to play a game and spend money on it if they could acquire perks by watching ads. It's feasible, though not spelled out in the report, that players could acquire in-game currency by surrendering to 15 or 30-second ads rather than using real cash, thus turning a free-to-play game into a viable video marketing platform. The tech wants to target younger players 18 to 34 who are more difficult to reach via conventional video marketing. In order to be rewarded for watching an ad, the ad needs to be watched to completion. Simulmedia's own research claims that people would be willing to watch up to 10 videos a day for rewards, which sounds crazy, but hey, I'm no market researcher. Simulmedia's Dave Madden points out that 90% of the free-to-play audience never buy in-game items, so this is another way to squeeze cash out of them. The company wants to implement these ads in roughly a dozen games by the end of 2021. It's a grim vision of gaming's future. Volunteer to be marketed during your scant leisure time for virtual rewards. Watch a 15-second ad about Cheetos to unlock a Marvel-themed cape in Fortnite. Where's the exit? And, of course, in the update part here, according to an Axios report, EA recently struck a deal revealed to an in-game advertising system called Player One, which is said to bring video ad tech to console games. EA said that's not true. The company tells PC Gamer that it isn't putting ads in console games and that it hasn't made any deal to do so. Following incorrect reports suggesting we are looking to introduce a TV-style commercial into our game, we want to clarify that in-game advertising for console games is not something we're currently looking at or have signed any agreement to implement, an EA spokesperson said. Creating the best possible player experience remains our priority focus. Because the Axios report here, I'll just go ahead and navigate right over to it really quick, has it listed, of course, right here. EA and Hi-Rez Studios. So what we're looking at here is, EA says that they're not, but, take that with a grain of salt. I mean, trust them as far as you can throw them. But EA was also doing tests. Like the one thing the article from PC Gamer didn't mention is that EA did their test in UFC 4 back in August or September of last year and had advertisements up in that game using the exact same platform.
Right. And
So,
we
yeah, it's bizarre.
had mentioned on the other news that or no, what was it? Yesterday when we spoke that the I'm going to say on the PlayStation version of UFC, they actually had Stadia commercials.
Yeah,
like
that's right. Yeah.
the unplug commercials or whatever. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, there were a lot of those types of like competing platform commercials that came up because targeted advertising is kind of one of those interesting things. But you pay for the slots. This is who you want to hit, and that's where it goes.
Yeah.
But for EA not to be involved in this, again, trust them as far as you can throw them. I think EA is involved. They just didn't really want their name to be dropped like this. I think they really wanted to stay more behind the shadows because we've seen how EA operates. We've seen it in the past with different things. I mean, look at what happened to Battlefront 2 and all the subsequent changes they had to make after the fact, for them to earn an extra buck. So for them to include advertisements and other things, that just doesn't seem like a surprise. I just don't want, and this is something you had mentioned yesterday too, Kyle, is we just don't want anything like this to show up in a game we paid for. So if we pay $60 for a game, we don't want this type of advertising. We just want it, we just want the game and just to be done with it.
Right. And on the other hand though, like I had mentioned to you, and you hadn't known that Prototype had actually tried this when it initially launched on the 360 and PS3. Yep. So you would have billboards that every week or two that they would change with like new movies coming out or like for video game stores or Best Buy or whatever. And it was kind of neat because it was still current things and it was like things you would actually see on billboards. Now, if it was something like that in a free-to-play game, I don't think I would be bugged at all by it. Like if I was playing Apex Legends, and this is the exact example I gave yesterday, was if it was like, here's the map leaders, eat Doritos Locos Tacos, back to the map leaders, I would totally be like, yeah, that's cool, whatever. We're sponsored by Doritos Locos Tacos of the future. That's cool. I'm down with it. But
yeah,
if you're gonna start throwing commercials into, a $60 game, a $70 game now on PlayStation, or shoot, even the $40 games, the AA titles.
I think anything that you have to pay for.
Wrong.
I think anything you have to pay for is going to be that problem. I think if it's, I think if the game can handle the advertisement stuff in there, don't make it obstructive to the actual game itself. Like you talked about with Prototype, of course, they had that on billboards in the game, which really just kind of weren't necessarily in the way. I made examples about like racing games where you're seeing like sponsorships for like different racing parts and components and the actual racing teams. A lot of that can make sense there, but I don't want to be playing something that I paid money for. Like let's say Battlefield 2042 drops. I don't want an advertisement to show up to tell me to go join the U.S. Army.
Yeah.
I don't want that.
Or to go tell me to buy Gold Bond. It's frustrating. Like
it is.
Just the thought of it. The fact that we've already had to pony up the money and they're getting it. And this all stems from the fact that it worked in mobile games. Which, it makes sense in a mobile game because it's an entirely different market. You're catering to an audience that plays for at most 5 minutes at a time. So what, 4 levels of Candy Crush? You know?
Yeah, and so to serve the level of advertisements there makes sense because then, they're not like you may not necessarily offend somebody who is in the midst of playing a game, say like, I'm thinking like some of the bigger cities who might be sitting on public transit and playing one of these games, and then they end up going off, to work, so they're out of the game. But then, that dev has made, a buck and a half on the advertising just for those couple minutes.
But
so,
say they had bad luck on this day to work and they had to watch, 5 advertisements or 2 different advertisements even to refill hearts so they could play on or whatever. Then how much more profit has that company officially generated off of just that one player in that 5 minutes of play?
Exactly. And that's one of those things.
There's probably 1,000 of those.
Yeah, and that's just one of those things that concerns me, especially like where the biggest difference about this is that it's not like they're just injecting videos in or anything just to say, okay, here it is. Simulmedia has actually, excuse me, Simulmedia has actually built a whole underlying system that incorporates into the game itself. You actually code it in. It's just what type of games that they've done other testing on that maybe people aren't really aware of yet to see how it works. Because the guy there that actually works on this now, they're, what was it? Where is his name? Dave Madden. So he's their like he's like their SVP of OTT and games, and he used to work for EA prior to this. So he knows what games would work best for this, and he knows exactly who to talk to say, hey, maybe you guys could test this. Here's a way to make some extra money because you guys are EA and we know you like money. I'm sure that there's probably been more stuff going on out there than what we realize. And I think EA's just doing this because they didn't want to be known that they were a part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But let's move on here to our next story, Kyle. Let's talk about this one here because this is by far, I think, probably the funniest story we got, and I think it's just more like it's crude humor is kind of what this comes down to for what this actually is. So talk to us about this one here, Kyle. This one comes to us from Kotaku. Cyberpunk 2077 now actually ready 6 months after release. What is happening?
CD Projekt Red or CD Projekt. Oh, what the heck? Sorry, there is something going on. I'm getting an outside call. Dang it. Okay, sorry. There we go. CD Projekt CEO Adam Kaczynski declared that Cyberpunk 2077 had finally reached a satisfying level of performance and stability at a WSE Innovation Day conference on June 23rd. All it took was 6 months of updates after the game was released. As reported by VGC via TVN24, Kaczynski explained that Cyberpunk 2077, which launched in an extremely rough state, especially on older consoles like the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, was finally stable enough that the developer could focus on updating other parts of the game and not just fixing things. We have also been working on improving the overall quality, which we are also quite happy about, said Kaczynski. Jeez. Of course, we also removed bugs and visual glitches, and we will continue to do that. Over time, we will also be introducing improvements to the general game system that players have highlighted. Cyberpunk 2077 was released on December 10th for PS4, Xbox One, and PC and Stadia. However, it launched in a horrible state on consoles. While folks on the PlayStation 4 Pro, the Xbox One X, and next-gen machines had a decent performance, many people who were stuck playing the game on basic consoles reported performance issues that made the game near unplayable during combat. On top of that, numerous strange bugs were reported and shared across social media in the days and weeks following the game's release. Things got so bad that on December 17th, Sony removed the game from the PlayStation Store and Microsoft slapped a warning label on it, telling folks the game had performance and stability issues. Both Sony and Microsoft, as well as retail stores, issued refunds to people who had bought the game. According to a December 18th report from Bloomberg, employees at CD Projekt were upset with management, questioning why the company suggested the game was complete and ready to ship when it clearly wasn't. Employees also had pressured the heads of company over extensive crunch and unrealistic development deadlines. There was also the question as to why CD Projekt hid the console versions of the game for so long. Only PC versions of the game, which had far fewer bugs, were available for review pre-release. Since being launched and pulled for the PlayStation Store December, Cyberpunk 2077's performance on consoles has improved as CD Projekt continues updating the game. On June 21st, after 187 days, the game returned to the PS Store, though it came with a big warning that advised folks not to buy the game if planning on playing it anywhere but a PS5 or PS4 Pro. During the conference on June 23rd, Kaczynski wouldn't give any specific or new information about how well Cyberpunk 2077 is selling on consoles, though, based on the numbers from the NPD group, it's safe to say it's not doing great. Still, the game has been financially successful on PC. These latest statements from Kaczynski paint a picture in June 2021 is very clear to see. Cyberpunk 2077 should not have been released on consoles back in December. It wasn't ready and it needed a lot more work. And while 6 months later, Kaczynski is happy with the current state of the game, warnings from Microsoft and Sony on each company's respective online store seem odds with his more optimistic opinion. But it does always still work on Stadia actually really well.
That's funny, though. I always find that hilarious that it's like Stadia is the best place to play that game. It's like, well, it found its niche in one place, but, so quickly on this one anyway, I mean, he's feeling confident about it, but they've got a class action lawsuit to still work through on the way that game delivered, not only for investors, but I think the class action lawsuit is also from people who just regularly purchase the game. And I'm sure that's actually like one of the next things that's like coming up. It's supposed to be sometime here soon that's supposed to kick off in court. But, I mean, if he's feeling optimistic about it, that's great. But I was actually reading somewhere else that even with that optimism, there are some things DLC wise that have actually been missing from the, or at least have not met the times listed in that timeline that they provided back in like January or February that said, well, I think it's probably end of December, early January when they said, here's the patch order we're going to release in to get these things fixed. Here's when this will release. Here's when this DLC or our next plan big releases for this type of update. They had a calendar like that, and supposedly they actually missed a date.
Right.
And I don't know what happened with that, but I mean, if Cyberpunk is definitely better on consoles, hey, someone go and try it out and let us know, because we got it on PC and we deal with our own problems when playing that game anyway on PC. So,
no, I've experienced some of the best bugs even still, and I really praise that game for the level of realism that they took and care and stuff. But then when you have a bug where someone walks through a wall or sits on an invisible chair, it just takes you so far out of the moment. It's not even I don't know. It's hard to get through the game.
It can be. No, that's one of my things. Like, I haven't even finished
unless
it.
I'm sitting down to like experience technical bugs and I don't get one in a while, then I've totally ruined my experience again,
Absolutely. Dude, I really hope that we don't ever see a Cyberpunk 2077 type situation again. I really hope we don't.
I think this will be one for the record books for game developers to look back at and say, now, double check.
Yeah, don't pull a CDPR. Don't do it just for the sake of doing it. You need to make sure that you are truly ready to go.
And not only that, don't talk about shit before you're ready. Don't say, oh, we're putting this in the game. We're putting this in the game. I mean, that's just bad.
That scroll that they basically unfurled in front of everybody when they kept on talking about the game. It's like, you're probably gonna wanna, be careful here. But,
just tear off the bottom 3/4 of that, and keep the top, and you're good.
Yeah, absolutely. So, of course, Cyberpunk is one thing, but let's turn our attention back to Microsoft. And this is actually going to be an exciting thing for anybody who really emphasizes using xCloud to play games. And it is our last story of the night. Microsoft's xCloud game streaming is now widely available on iOS and PC. Microsoft's xCloud, the cloud game streaming component of Xbox Game Pass Ultimate that doesn't require a console to use, is rolling out fully to iOS devices, including iPhones and iPads, as well as PCs and macOS computers via the web. It has been in an invite-only beta period since mid-April 2021, but Game Pass Ultimate subscribers can now access the games right from their devices. Microsoft says that on PCs, xCloud can be accessed through the Edge browser and Google Chrome. And of course, The Verge lists here that they've gotten it to work within macOS on Microsoft Edge and Safari. More than 100 games are available, and the service is compatible with Bluetooth controllers or ones connected via USB. On iOS, it works as a web-based app via Safari, and you have the choice between a controller or touch controls for certain games. Microsoft also shared in its blog post that xCloud is not powered by Xbox, or is now powered by Xbox Series X consoles, setting the streaming at 1080p at up to 60 frames per second with a fast enough internet connection. The road to getting xCloud on iOS was a bumpy one, with Apple's App Store guidelines initially blocking not just Microsoft, but also Google Stadia's and NVIDIA's GeForce Now cloud streaming services from launching on the App Store. Apple eventually carved out some loopholes to allow them to operate via the web, but not without caveats. To celebrate the launch, Microsoft put its Designed for Xbox badge on one of the best mobile gaming accessories around, Backbone's One controller. This new version is physically identical to the pre-existing model, which has been available since late 2020 because it's technically the same. What's changed is the physical packaging that now calls out its Xbox compatibility. And despite no increase in price, it comes with a complimentary 3-month trial to Xbox Game Pass Ultimate for new members, which usually costs $45 on its own. It's available through the Microsoft Store and Backbone's website. Razer revised the version of the Kishi controller for iPhone and has monochrome buttons, and also includes a Game Pass Ultimate trial for new users. So that's pretty cool that we have finally hit a point that Game Pass, or not even Game Pass, but the game streaming side of things has actually jumped and actually has improved even further. Not only has it expanded to more platforms, I mean, I really think it's actually about everywhere it can be. But now it's got Series X hardware in the back end. That's great.
Yeah.
Have you actually brought up any streaming games yet to try out to see what things look like?
I haven't. I've always had terrible luck with them.
Okay.
Really bad screen tearing, horrible connection rate, horrible bit rate when I'm playing. The touch controls are intuitive, but I think it's more of a last ditch effort if you really don't have a controller, because they're tough to use, and especially games that you have to use like the I don't know, the accelerometer. It's not an accelerometer, but the certain aspects of the potentiometer in an analog stick. It doesn't translate well to a touch analog stick.
Why am I not shocked?
Yeah, so
You would think it would, but why am I not shocked?
Like I said, there are games it works just fine. Like if you're playing Slay the Spire, which I do mobile, that's about the only game that I've really continuously tried to put any time in on xCloud, or whatever they call it now, Xbox game streaming.
I think Project xCloud is still the thing, or xCloud is the name.
But I mean, it's cool, but I don't think I've connected yet with the new hardware in place.
Yeah, and I haven't had an opportunity to either, because we're just down the road, like a 20-minute drive away from a Microsoft data center, which I have friends who work there and have told me that they've got a segment of that data center out there specific to Xbox. So I wouldn't be surprised if there is actually Series X hardware in there now.
Right.
But yeah, I haven't had a chance to try it, but I really think I need to, just to see what it's like. And I think where the biggest visibility into it's going to be is probably on mobile data, on 5G, to actually see what it looks like, and even LTE, to see what the quality is looking like, because that's what this is positioned for. That this is something to buy or to get, and use while you're going places. So I may have to break out the phone mount after the news here tonight and hook things up and start trying it out to see. And then I guess I'll let you know what happens. I guess I'll fill you in. So yeah, but that's cool though. Congrats to you, Microsoft, on getting all of that out there. And anybody who has not started playing, has not started doing anything with Game Pass yet, with Game Pass Ultimate, to have all these different perks put into it. It's $15 a month, and it's actually one of the coolest things and probably one of the most affordable things you can do for yourself, especially if you play a lot of games. There's a lot of stuff in that catalog, and even game streaming is just an additional perk. So if you haven't done it yet and you have an Xbox, do it. And then of course, if you are also a PC gamer, take a look at it as well too for PC, because there's a lot of neat stuff you can get even on the PC side. Like I've got Microsoft Flight Simulator on PC through Game Pass. Didn't have to pay that part.
I bought Yakuza Like a Dragon for $60. Travis is playing it for free on Xbox Game Pass.
I am. That's absolutely right. You are right.
But on the other hand, I can play my Xbox save data on the PC, I found out, because my save transfers.
Yay for the cloud. Yay for someone else's computer. In the meantime, of course, though, as we go to look at all of that stuff, and we will, of course, here later on, it is time to end the news. So thanks, everybody. I
did have two quick things, actually.
Make them quick.
Netflix is dead officially on the DS and Wii U as of this week.
Yeah, I saw that too.
PlayStation PSP is officially dead as of yesterday, but not quite. Some of those PlayStation games or PSP games you will still be able to download via the PlayStation Store onto your Vita. So if you missed out, you still have
Vita and PS3 at least for right now until the PS, because the PS3 and Vita stuff is going to be shutting down here in the next couple months. So get those old games quick if you really want to get them. So
but the
absolutely.
PSP was supposed to be dead yesterday, so officially. So get them quick if you haven't.
Run. Is that it then?
Yeah, that's it. Sorry.
That's all right, dude. But anyway, of course, that is it for the news now, officially. Of course, with that, if you're watching us on YouTube, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you do know when we go live with a live stream here, of course, talking about the news. If you're watching us on Facebook, make sure to hit that like button, and that way you know when we go live. Same goes for you on YouTube. You'll get a notification. You can come hop in. You can chat with us. You can provide your feedback on the news as well. And also, just like Kyle did there, bring up any news stories that we missed that might actually be something worth talking about. Really helps us out, really helps you out. The dynamic is always great when we have people hopping in to chat with us. Of course, the main thing that we do is a podcast. You want to check that out, anchor.fm/the-NPCs-podcast. We've actually decided to go ahead and split back to a 2-podcast format. So we are doing 2 episodes a week now. Tuesdays and Thursdays, we will be publishing our, basically kind of going back to a what are you playing format again. We'll be talking about the games we're playing that will release on Tuesday. And then Thursday, what was originally our topic release is now going to be what we are doing in the second half of the show, which is the NPCs Discuss is what we've called it. And that's where we take a general topic out there relating to video games, video game culture, the industry and such, and talk more about it in detail and kind of start to look at a little bit of the nuances into that. The focus, of course, for the one upcoming this week is titled Online Only, and ties into actually a couple of the stories that we talked about here tonight. So if you want to kind of know what the format's like, go listen to our most recent episode. Again, it is up there on anchor.fm. And of course, any podcast platform that you do happen to use and like. With that, that is it for us, everybody. Thanks again for tuning in. We'll catch you guys all next week.
Laters.